It's your man, 100 grand, Ross with the Rock Never Stops. The Minnesota Timberwolves are officially out of the playoffs. Um, they've had a remarkable run, 2 years in a row, Western Conference Finals, and just coming up short. And there's a lot to get into in this video. There were a lot of things that I saw in this playoff run that was noteworthy, something to applaud Anthony Edwards and the Timberwolves, and at the same time is also concerning when it comes to their long-term outlook. And I want to get into all of that. But let me just start off with uh let me just give my flowers to Anthony Edwards. At 23 years old, he is on a run that in terms of just performance and how he's shown up early in his career. I don't think we've seen anything like this since maybe like a LeBron James and Dwayne Wade. Like straight up, like a young guy with older players around him, established players, and they're looking to him to lead them. And then him delivering, that guy delivering, that young player delivering at 22 years old, at 23 years old, having the maturity, the work ethic, the consistency to show up, to lead them. You know, when Julius Randle was getting into his head early in the playoffs, Anthony Edwards was the first one there to be like, nah, we need you to shoot more, bro. We need you to do more. Uh, when um, when Rudy Gobert was struggling, the media was getting on him. Anthony Edwards was the one, to stand up for him and be like, "Yo, man, hey, this is our guy. This is our guy. He holds it down for us." He breathed so much confidence into his teammates. Um, it's one of those things where, like, I don't know if anyone else could have had this team playing at this level of confidence. They just ran into a buzzsaw of a team who was a little bit better constructed. Um, and had a little bit more heart, dog, versatility. They were able to turn it up to a level that I don't think Minnesota was able to match. They didn't necessarily have the maturity to match it. And I think that it's another growing pain that they're going to have to move through and think about how they construct this roster and moving forward. But first, let me start with Anthony Edwards. Great job. 23 years old. Twice you've now been in the Western Conference Finals. You're doing a hell of a job. And I think the Minnesota Timberwolves, I got to give you props too, that you have pulled the trigger to make deals that people were not excited about at first. When you brought in Rudy Gobert, everyone maligned you and said, "How are you going to make this double big lineup work?" And then it worked. It worked. But then you saw the writing on the wall with Karl Anthony Towns' bloated contract and started recognizing it's going to inhibit you from building a contender and maintaining a contender around Anthony Edwards moving forward in the future, in his very bright future. And so you guys decided to get off of that contract. Great job. Because we see that there's a ceiling, a cap with Karl Anthony Towns. He's a very talented player, but on his own, before Anthony Edwards was able to get there, he couldn't get you into the playoffs on his own. He was not a winner to that degree. He was not a leader to that degree. And so he wasn't necessarily worth what you had to pay him at the time because you didn't have anyone else. Now you've got the guy, you've got the man, and you're building around him intentionally. And that's what gets me to this offseason. Let's really take a look at this roster. And I want to start off with Rudy Gobert. He has been every bit worth his contract. They have extended his contract at a really reasonable rate. When you have a first team all defensive center, second team all defensive center, he's the type of center that guarantees you're going to have a top 10 defense. And in turn, you will be in the playoffs every single year. There that is rare company, extremely rare company that you have a player that guarantees you're going to be in the playoffs just because of the impact that they have in the game. And that's Rudy Gobert. His hands, we can talk all about his hands, his lack of finishing, his offensive skill. I'm not even going to hold you. But his defense is that great that it offsets all of that. And so I'm not mad at that. The only thing that I'm concerned about is that he's 32 years old. And he's 32 years old, going on 33, and Anthony Edwards is 23, which means that we're going to have to start looking at what does the future hold for this team. He's under contract for the next 3 seasons, 25, 26, 26, 27, 27, 28. He's going to be 35. Anthony Edwards will be 25, 26. And we're going to have to start thinking about what does this team look like moving forward. Now, I don't think this team is in any bit of a rush, and they shouldn't be in any bit of a rush to try to figure everything out and make it work. Right now, they just have to tweak some things, and I'm going to get into that later on. The next person I want to take a look at is Julius Randle. Julius Randle, I'm gonna be honest, he has always been a talented player, but he's always been a mercurial player, meaning he's a bit volatile emotionally. He's up and down, and he struggles with the mental, emotional leadership aspect of the game. He sometimes forgets he's relied upon to lead men, which means that to a degree you have to get out of your feelings. Not that you have to ignore what you're feeling. You need to have a plan for how to deal with it. Hey, I'm disappointed I missed 3 shots in a row. I want to slouch and drop my head and jog back, but I know when I'm feeling this way, when I'm feeling embarrassed, when I'm feeling ashamed or I'm feeling disappointed, what I'm going to choose to do despite that is hustle even harder. I'm going to get on the boards. If I'm having a bad shooting game, I'm going to grab my team 15 rebounds, 20 rebounds, because that's all within what he's capable of doing. I'm going to hit the boards crazy hard. I'm going to set great screens, get into some pick and roll action. I'm going to get downhill and get to the free throw line, right? Pump fake, go up strong, get to the free throw line, right? He lacks some of that mental fortitude. And I think that that is something that keeps his value right where it is, if not a little bit lower. Because of the second apron and the new CBA, teams have less money to play with and they're less apt to just dole it out. If Julius Randle opts out, I fully expect the Minnesota Timberwolves to try to work something out with him to keep him on the team because he's a talented player. But I expect it'll be closer to something like 25 million a year rather than the 33 that he's currently getting and the 30 that he's supposed to get next year. But they might extend it for the next 3 years. Maybe line it up with Rudy Gobert's contract. 3 more years, 25 million is be about a 75 million, 78, maybe even $80 million deal. And I think that that's a great deal for Julius Randle's talent. It also allows them to re-sign Naz Reid, who is 100% likely to opt out. 100%. There's no way he's sticking around for the current contract of $13 million. He's owed 15 next year, but his productivity, his skill, his ability to show up in the playoffs at 6'10", play both front court positions effectively, his shooting ability, ability to score off the bounce and in the post, uh, really good hands defensively. Shit. Sorry, I'm moving around too much. Let's try this again. Yeah, really good hands defensively. Um, yeah, just a damn good player. And so I don't think there's any way that Nas Reed sticks at 13 million a year. He's looking to get a big raise, somewhere around 20 plus million a year. I think that what that's going to look like is them restructuring that contract as well to get him close to probably around 22, $23 million a year. Now, I think that they can figure out how to make that work between Julius Randle's 33, 35, Nas Reed's current 13, 15, and then say, you know what? We're going to bring Randle down. We're going to bring Nas up and we're going to maintain our front court. But if they have to choose between the two, they're definitely choosing Nas Reed because Nas Reed, I believe, is that he's only 25 years old, 26 years old, and he fits the timeline of Anthony Edwards far more than Julius Randle, who's 30 years old. Now, the next part of this, Dante DiVincenzo, great guy, 28 years old. I think they keep him around for the duration of his contract over the next 2 seasons. And then you have guys like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who's gonna be a free agent. I think he walks. They may try to re-sign him and do a sign and trade, but I doubt that he stays because I think they really like Terrence Shannon Jr., who's 24 years old, who played really well in his rookie year for them in the playoffs. Really athletic, has a lot of pop to his game, and I think he's ready to slide into that role at the small forward position, at that wing small forward like position. So they're still going to have depth there. And then we get to the young guys. And I'm going to get to Mike Conley in a minute, but I want to get to Rob Dillingham. Somewhat of a disappointing rookie year only because I think a lot of us wanted to see more of him. But I said from the very beginning of the year, he's a young guy on a veteran team that's competing for a championship. Young guys don't get a lot of playing time for championship teams. They just don't. They just don't. Most of them have not refined their game enough to contribute to a championship contending team. You just don't see it. You don't see any rookies getting playing time in Indiana. You don't see any rookies getting playing time in New York. You don't see rookies getting playing time. I mean, Detroit's Ron Holland got sparse minutes in the playoffs, and that's just because they just lack depth coming off the bench. But even then, it was sparse. It was hardly any minutes because there's so many things that they still have to learn and understand. It was understandable why Rob Dillingham was not getting a lot of burn, but let's put a little pin in that because he's also a big part of their future. I also liked guys like Josh Minot, who or Minot, I forget how to pronounce it. Some of you Minnesota Timberwolves fans will hit me up and correct me. Um, but Josh Minot at 6'8", he looks like he's around 220 something pounds, 220 something pounds. He has a good wingspan, really good wingspan. I think it's like 6'11", 7 feet wingspan. Really bouncy athlete, can shoot the ball as well. He looks really confident out there, plays defense, moves without the ball. I think he's a great backup behind Jaden McDaniels. So I think when you look at the future of this bench, if they can retain Nas Reed and Julius Randle, they're going to have a bench that consists of Rob Dillingham, Dante DiVincenzo, Terrence Shannon Jr., Josh Minot, and then Nas Reed. And I'm going to get into that a little bit more later. But for now, they have a really, really bright future. They got a star who's young, still growing into his prime at 23 years old. They have a good supporting cast. Jaden McDaniels, even though he struggled at times, he also was absolutely monstrous at times. There were certain moments where Jaden McDaniels was just a beast out there, an absolute beast. And then the incumbent veteran, Mike Conley. Look, it's hard to be all right with the limitations of Mike Conley when you need him so much more. And let's be completely honest. Mike Conley was a no-show in this game 5. He was essentially almost unplayable. He couldn't stay in front of anybody. He was too small. He couldn't score. He was very ineffective. Um, and as a result, all the pressure got placed on Anthony Edwards. All the pressure got placed on Anthony Edwards to be the primary facilitator, ball handler, playmaker, shot creator. And I think that wore Anthony Edwards down, especially considering that Julius Randle, the mercurial incumbent supporting cast number 2, once he gets down on himself, he gets way down. Once he misses a few shots in a row, he almost disappears and becomes unplayable. He gets into his head, he stops rebounding, he stops getting downhill. It's almost like he forgets everything else he has to do to contribute, um, meaning rebounding it to the free throw line and be a bull in a china shop. Throw your weight around, box out strong, put your physical body into Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein. Make those guys feel you. Get on the offensive glass. They can't box you out. But and I'm gonna be honest with you, Julius Randle seemed like the whole season like he didn't want to be there. If I'm completely honest with you. Julius Randle looked like he did not want to be in Minnesota from the moment he arrived. And I think that that's something that they're going to have to address. Do you want to be here, bro? Because if you want to be here, we need more from our number two guy. We need more from the guy who's supposed to be the Robin to Anthony Edwards' Batman. Anthony Edwards can't be carrying you too, bro. You have to be someone who can carry some of this load, encouraging, empowering your teammates, uh, doing more playmaking and facilitating that he used to do in New York, right? When he had that all NBA season, Julius Randle was getting his assists, 5, 6 assists a game, while scoring efficiently and effectively, getting downhill, getting to the free throw line. These are things that I want to see more from Julius Randle. And if he's going to be there, he's got to be committed. He's got to be committed to being that secondary guy, um, someone who can pick up the slack when Anthony Edwards is struggling. Be determined to turn it on when Anthony Edwards is struggling. So I think that that's something that I want to see more from him. But they have to have a long talk. Do you want to be here? Do you want to be here? Not just for the money. Do you want to be here to compete? And I think that that's something that Anthony Edwards needs to be in that room as well when they ask him. Rudy Gobert needs to be in that room. Jaden McDaniels needs to be in that room when they ask him and look in his eyes. And he's either got to give a resounding hell yeah, I want to be here. What you mean? What you talking about? Of course I want to be here. Shit, hey, I rock with y'all. That's he has to have that type of energy. Otherwise, you can't do it. You can't do it because you can't have a guy that's sulking. And Anthony Edwards is looking for his co-star, and Julius Randle is trotting up the court while everyone else is sprinting. Julius Randle is sulking and dropping his head while the game is still going on. You can't have a big 30-year-old baby who's having an emotional fit on a basketball court in a Western Conference Finals when you need him the most. Because what's going to happen when you get to the NBA Finals? What's going to happen when all the bright lights is on you? And at this point, if I'm honest with you, I think we know what he is. I think we know what he is. That's who he's going to be. He's going to be the sulker crier. You're going to have to pick him up. You can't depend upon him in that situation. So you're going to have a pivot. I'm going to get to that in terms of the pivot for this team in the future later on in this video. But Mike Conley, my guy, Father Time has caught his ass and kicked him in the gut. Father Time has taken away more than just a step. Mike Conley now, he's smart still. He's still crafty, heady, makes good plays, knows the right thing to do. But when you're trying to get to a championship, he cannot be your starting point guard for a championship team. He just cannot. He cannot. And I think that Minnesota is going to have to solve that. They're going to have to solve that because you can't just bring in anybody. What I foresee, what I would not be shocked, is if they don't re-sign Julius Randle and maybe even do a sign and trade thing with Nickeil Alexander Walker and try to go get that guy. Try to go get that point guard. Try to go get that guy that you could bring in next to Anthony Edwards. I mean, even if you look at somebody like a Deuce McBride, right? Even if you look at someone, um, I don't know, one of these young point guards coming up who need an opportunity, and you say, you know what, we're gonna go after him. Now, I don't know if that guy is out there just yet, and I think that Minnesota is in a position, and this is what I said at the beginning of this video, that they're in a position where they don't have to rush it, where they don't have to necessarily force the issue, where they don't have to come out and try to be everything all at once. It's disappointing to not get into the NBA Finals after being so close, but they can't dismiss that they got there 2 years in a row, which speaks to just how good this team is, just how good Anthony Edwards is, Jaden McDaniels, Rudy Gobert, and the supporting cast, Naz Reid, Mike Conley, for even his slowness, has still been able to be a factor. And I think that that's something that we have to consider as well. Now, this is the pivot. I'm going to get into the draft a little bit too. I think they need a big man. They need a center, potentially a defensive center. I love Thomas Sorber for them. I love Thomas Sorber for them. And if they can trade some way to get someone like Wendell Carter Jr., even better. But Thomas Sorber, I think, is a great defensive center, 7'6" wingspan, uh, 6'9" without shoes. So he's over 6'10", has good size, finishes inside. He's not an above the rim athlete, plays a lot like Wendell Carter Jr., if I'm honest. And he's got a jump shot, good finishing with both hands, plays physical, defensive minded, great IQ. I think he could be a great asset next to Nas Reed as a future 5'4" in that front court alongside Anthony Edwards. But the major pivot that this team has to do, yeah, dynasty begins after number 5. Facts. True. But I think that for these Minnesota Timberwolves, they have to start playing the young guys, and it may cost them wins at times. It may cost them some wins at times. Nah, you can't make fun of Ant. Ant. I said at the beginning of this video, um, Anthony Edwards at 23 years old is doing something that we've only seen LeBron James, D Wade come in and do. Be a leader of men at a young age. For Anthony Edwards to be 22 and 23 years old, to be leading a team of veteran men deep into the playoffs, and they look to him to calm things down, to give them direction, to tell them what to do, right? And they can jump on his back and be confident that he can carry them there. That's special. That's special. It's everything you want in a superstar because there's superstar talents who don't have superstar leadership. Carl Anthony Towns, right? Don't have it between the ears, don't have it in the heart. And they've got that guy. So I got nothing but praise for Anthony Edwards. But let me just say this. They're going to have to play these young guys. Rob Dillingham, Josh Minot, Terrence Shannon Jr., Nas Reed, of course. But the reason why it's imperative that they play these young guys is because they're going to need this young crew, 21, 22-year-olds, to be the future supporting cast that maintains a competitive roster around Anthony Edwards. Joe B, I do have a theory about players in his archetype moving forward, though, but I'll have to have a conversation about that with you sometime. TSJ is nice as hell. Who's TSJ? Oh, Terrence Shannon Jr. Yeah. No, he's nice. He's nice. Try to dump Rudy. I don't think so yet. I would not dump Rudy Gobert just yet. Rudy Gobert is a player who his defense alone gets you into the playoffs every single year. Love the channel, Sam from Oaks. Hey, what's good with you, man? What's good? Appreciate you stopping through. Smash the like button for me. You know, when I think about how old Anthony Edwards is and recognizing that they are in a championship window with a young superstar at 23 years old, that's damn special. That's crazy special. You have to understand, it took Jordan, I want to say Jordan was like 25, 26 before he broke through. He was getting knocked out first round, second round, first round. It was a minute before he broke through. So for Anthony Edwards to break through and be in the Western Conference Finals back-to-back years at 22 and 23 years old, sky's the limit. But you need guys to make sure that you continue to get back there, and it can't all be on Anthony Edwards. Rudy Gobert is a guy who gets you there every single year. His defense alone ensures that you have a good enough defensive team, and not even just good enough, you're going to be elite defensively. So much so that you're going to be at least a top 6 seed in the playoffs every year with Rudy Gobert. He's done that his entire career from Utah with Donovan Mitchell, Gordon Hayward, and then coming to the Minnesota Timberwolves, now with Anthony Edwards. If you've got Gobert, you're going to have a top 10 elite defense that's going to allow you to get into the playoffs. You pair that with a superstar, and now you're going to be a top 3, 4 seed every single year. You don't just dump that guy. unless you have someone else to replace that guy. All right. Now, here's the thing: they don't need to make major changes. They just need to focus on these youth. They need to focus on Rob Dillingham. They need to focus on Terrence Shannon and Josh Minot because they need one of these guys to pop. They need one of these guys to be that unsuspecting, oh, we didn't realize we have a 20 plus points per game guy off the bench who can be dominant, who changes the landscape of this team, right? Like, what if Josh Minot becomes somebody who can give you 16.7 rebounds, right? And plays great defense. Now, all of a sudden, you got 6'10" Jaden McDaniels, 6'8", 6'9" Josh Minot, right? And I have this incredible amount of length, athleticism, speed, and shooting that you have the ability to go to. Now, when you go up against an Oklahoma City Thunder, you say, okay, I'm just going to put up a bunch of monstrous, long, tall, athletic defenders. And let's see how our tall athletic defenders do against your short athletic defenders, right? Against Luguins Dort, against Jalen Williams, who's 6'5", right? Has a good wingspan, but he's 6'5", 6'5" is 6'5", right? Alex Caruso's 6'6", right? I got 6'10", 6'9". So then it gives you certain advantages and leverages. They need some of these young guys to pop. Now, I also like Rob Dillingham because I don't think there's a better point guard prospect out there for them to get, right? They're not going to get Darius Garland anytime soon. I mean, that might be somebody for them to look at in the future, but they need to see what they got in Rob Dillingham because I think Rob Dillingham can be an absolute bucket. I think he could be somebody in the playoffs if he was ready. He's somebody who should be able to come in maybe next year and be someone who can drop 15 in a playoff game, come off the bench, and all of a sudden he's giving you 20 points, 3, 4 threes, and maybe a couple of assists and getting to the free throw line, changing the shape of the game. When everyone's focused on Anthony Edwards, you have a real dynamic shot creator and playmaker coming off the bench. I think that's something you need to explore with him. And I think that that's the big shift that this team has to make moving forward in the future. Get to some of these comments here. Uh, Rudy basically stopped the first 2 rounds of the playoffs himself. He killed the Lakers, and he was killing Golden State. Like, he basically helped them get 2 round by winning the big bat. Oh, facts. Yeah, I mean, he's 7'2", bro. Remember, this is a NBA. This ain't the '90s where everybody has a 7'2" center, right? Where you got Brad Doherty and Patrick Ewing, David Robinson, and Hakeem and Shaq and Duncan, and you got all these 7-footers out there, even Greg Ostertag and Rick Smits, and everyone's got a 7-footer, right? Even a Vlade Divac and Eldon Campbell and everyone, Kevin Willis, everyone has 7-footers back then. In this era, ain't nobody got 7-footers, bro. Definitely not physical, defensive minded 7-footers. So those guys are rare. And you know what they say, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. Well, in the land with no real legitimate centers, you got one that is just elite on one end, whether it's Jokic, elite on offense, or Rudy Gobert, elite on defense, you are going to be able to be dominant. Rudy, 2 points, 3 rebounds in game 1 versus OKC. I think, honestly, I think his lack of contribution at times is due to the lack of real point guard play. When Rudy first got there with Mike Conley, he looked really good next to Mike Conley. Um, they had some chemistry coming from Utah, and they were able to link up. The problem was, as Mike Conley slowed down, you didn't have the floor general who could get guys the ball in their spots. And more as Father Time kicks Mike Conley in the ass and he loses more and more of a step, what you see is less and less of an ability to intentionally keep Rudy Gobert involved in the game. Now, I know some of it has to be like, hey, you got to scheme it and he's got to want it. But sometimes it's hard uh, when you don't have a point guard that can arrange everything. And Mike Conley just isn't there anymore. Now, I do like guys like Tyus Jones, who's from Minnesota, he's from the area, played with the Timberwolves for a time before he went to Memphis and then now in Phoenix. I think he's somebody who is an unrestricted free agent that they should target to bring in. 100%. 100%. Bring that dude back because he's a consummate floor general who can get people involved. He's a tenacious defender. He's basically like a younger Mike Conley. And I think that he can do a lot of good for them just by having more energy, being able to play more minutes, being able to give them more defense and getting up and down the court, and trying to finish at the rim. I think he has a lot more to offer. And I think that that's something that they should definitely target. But Rob Dillingham is somebody who I want to see be 15 to 18 minutes a game off the bench. I want to see if he could become Lou Williams. I need to see guys, Minnesota Timberwolves need to see if he could become that six man of the year candidate who can get you 16 to 20 points in a game off the bench and every once in a while explode and get 30. Because that's the type of talent he has. That is legitimately the type of talent that he has. Some of these other comments here. Yeah, he got stomped by the OKC front. Yes. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. He got stopped by the OKC front court. Uh, and a lot of it was also scheme, though. You have to understand that Oklahoma City plays a brand of defense that mostly like colleges play, where they just swarm you in waves, and guys are giving incredible amount of defensive effort. There's this saying that we used to have when I used to coach some college ball, where we used to say, "When the ball moves, you move. When the ball moves, you move." And the key is to be able to have an eye on the ball and your man staying in position. But the moment the ball moves, you're already on the go so that you're almost beating the ball to wherever the location is. And they just decided every time Anthony Edwards gets the ball or Julius Randle, the moment they they put the ball on the ground, we're going to send a guy and we're going to time it and we're going to get in there and disrupt their handle and force them to make high level decisions with a lot of ball pressure. And they couldn't do it. They couldn't do it. Jaden McDaniels, Rudy Gobert, Julius Randle struggled to make the right decision, quick decisions with a swarming defense that was pressuring the moment they put the ball on the floor, not when they just catch the ball. And that's a huge difference. They're letting them catch the ball, right? Because at that moment, what they realize is that none of those guys on that team are proficient in playmaking where they can go for their shot, but at the same time see the pass as well as the basket. Even Anthony Edwards, who's gotten extremely good at it, sometimes he'll pass up a good look for only a tiny bit better look to a guy that is not as good as him. And I think that that's where Anthony Edwards has to grow. That a good shot for you, an okay shot for you, is still better than a little bit better shot for somebody else. Now, if you're passing up an okay shot, a good shot for you, for a great, awesome, wide open shot for someone else, go, okay, that's fine. But you can't pass up a shot for you only for a marginally better shot for someone else. But that's Anthony Edwards' growth, and that's going to happen over time. All that's to say is they need some more guys that they can go to. Dante DiVincenzo, I think he'll be better coming in next year, more acclimated to this roster. I think Julius Randle, if he comes back, he'll be more acclimated. They'll have better chemistry and continuity. Guys will trust each other more. I think they'll play to their strengths more. I think Julius Randle will have an opportunity to become more of a facilitator and move Anthony Edwards off the ball more. And I think bringing in Rob Dillingham also allows Anthony Edwards to not have to do as much facilitating and playmaking for others, and he can become more of a scorer. I think we see him make a big jump, become a 30 plus points per game scorer. And I think that that's the progression of this team. I don't think they need to make a huge move unless it's the right move. And I think that that's the lesson that Minnesota can learn from the Oklahoma City Thunder. Making the right move at the right time in terms of roster construction, trades, free agency is far more important than just making a move. And we saw that through the progression. I think they showed Mark Daigneault, the head coach for the Oklahoma City Thunder, his progression from the moment he became the head coach. It was 20 something wins, 20 something wins. Then they jumped to 40 wins. And then last season they were at 57. And then this year they were at 68. They didn't go all in after 40 wins. They went all in after 57 when they knew they had everything in place, except for this one guy, Alex Caruso, and this other guy, Isaiah Hartenstein. Once they had everything else in place, they went all in. That's how the Timberwolves need to move. Don't just do any move. Don't just go out and get anyone. They need to wait for him, the right guy, the right guy who shows up, who can be your point guard for the next 5, 6 years, to be the heir apparent to Rudy Gobert's defensive anchor for the next 5 to 6 years. If it's not that guy, you wait. You have the depth, you have the pieces, right? Continue to get your salary cap, make sure it's flexible. You've got the contracts you can make trades with. Keep developing your young guys so that you have assets to deal. Maintain your draft stock so you have even more assets. And then when the right moment comes, make the move. So what I anticipate this offseason is that Minnesota doesn't make any major changes unless Julius Randle doesn't want to be there. Um, I think that he gets re-signed, but for less than what he's making now, somewhere around 24 to 28 million a year. And then you have Nas Reed, he'll get re-signed for something close to that, 22, 24 million a year. And then you'll have Terrence Shannon stepping into Nickeil Alexander-Walker's role, along with Dante DiVincenzo. And then you're going to feature Rob Dillingham more and hopefully play Josh Minot a lot more because I really like him as a player as well. All that continuing to build around Anthony Edwards, I think is going to maintain their competitiveness for the foreseeable future. I also like I said before, what's his name from the Phoenix Suns, Tyus Jones, who's from the Minnesota area. He was great for them when he was playing in Minnesota already, and I think he's the consummate floor general. He can be the heir apparent to Mike Conley, the guy who can run the show, get the ball where it needs to be, play good defense, be a good facilitator, while at the same time allowing Rob Dillingham to come in and be a sixth man of the year candidate to grow into that role. All right, he can maintain the ship while Rob Dillingham grows into the player they need him to be to compete for a championship. Because if Rob Dillingham becomes a sixth man of the year type guy, where he's getting uh, 16, 18 points per game off the bench, that completely changes the dynamic of this team. Now you got Julius Randle with 20 plus points per game, Anthony Edwards 20 plus points per game, and then you have Jaden McDaniels and now Rob Dillingham off the bench and Nas Reed off the bench. That's firepower. That's real firepower. That's type of firepower that's going to extend Anthony Edwards' career because you're not going to be as heavily reliant upon him throughout the regular season and into the playoffs. You'll have more weapons to go to and more versatility. All I say is it's still a bright future for the Minnesota Timberwolves. It was disappointing for them to lose, but who they lost to, how they lost, I can't be mad at it. Oklahoma City was a 68 win team. This is what a 68 win team is supposed to look like, dominant all the way through the playoffs. And they have been. If I'm honest with you, I kind of got them winning the whole thing. Got them winning the whole thing. I think they have enough guard pressure, athleticism to really stymie what Indiana wants to do. Um, Versatile defenders who can really make things difficult for Tyrese Halliburton. Uh, the major matchup that I would be looking at is also Pascal Siakam versus Chet Holmgren. Um, can Chet stay in front of the elusive Pascal Siakam, who had one of the quietest 30-point games in an Eastern Conference Finals major game last night? And I think he's going to show up big in New York again. I think New York is, I'm not going to say that they're ready to fold, but they're frustrated. Indiana's in their heads, and being up 3-1 and having won 2 games in New York, I think that I'm not saying New York is just gonna fold, but they're tired. They're tired, and I think they see the writing on the wall. Indiana's gonna have to go in there and take it. And I think they have everything they need to take it. They so far, everything they've tried has worked, and I think it will continue to work. And I think they can have confidence in that, and they're gonna wanna wrap things up considering Oklahoma City is now gonna be resting. They got those guys to worry about. Now, at the same time, a long layover can hurt you. A long layoff between series can hurt you, cause you to be a little bit more lethargic. And let's be clear, Pascal Siakam, he could use the rest. He's older. Miles Turner, he can use the rest. Um, but it'll be interesting. I'm here for it. I'm gonna watch the game tomorrow. I'll do a recap afterwards. But I appreciate everybody for being on with me throughout this live chat. Um, yeah, it's your man 100 grand Ross with the Rock Never Stops. I'm gonna get at y'all next time. Peace.